Red Bull is in serious trouble for removing McLaren's tape. Hamilton gets Ferrari boost for Mexican GP, and all the latest F1 news. Formula One just witnessed one of the most bizarre controversies of the 2025 season, and it involves something as simple as a piece of tape. What happened at the United States Grand Prix has left the F1 community scratching their heads and asking serious questions about sportsmanship at the highest level of motorsport. Picture this. You're Lando Norris, sitting on the front row of the grid at Circuit of the Americas, preparing for what could be a championship-defining race. Your team has placed a small strip of tape on the pit wall as a visual reference point to help you position your car perfectly in your grid slot. It's a simple legal practice that McLaren has used for years. But then, something unprecedented happens. According to multiple reports emerging after Sunday's race, a Red Bull team member deliberately targeted this innocent piece of tape, attempting to interfere with McLaren's preparation ritual. This isn't just about tape anymore, folks. This is about the lengths teams will go to gain even the smallest psychological advantage in Formula One's cutthroat environment. The incident unfolded during the formation lap procedures, that crucial period when teams make their final preparations before the race begins. As marshals were in the process of closing Gate 1 in the pit wall, the area directly adjacent to Norris's grid position, a Red Bull team member allegedly re-entered the restricted zone. When marshals tried to stop him, he reportedly gave no response and continued toward the McLaren tape. What makes this story even more intriguing is that sources suggest this wasn't an isolated incident. Reports indicate that Red Bull has interfered with McLaren's tape placement on previous occasions, forcing the Woking-based team to develop new methods to make their visual markers more difficult to remove. This suggests a pattern of behavior that goes beyond a simple misunderstanding. The FIA stewards took a dim view of the situation, slapping Red Bull with a €50,000 fine, though half of that amount was suspended as a deterrent against future violations. But here's the fascinating part. The official penalty had nothing to do with the tape itself. Instead, the stewards focused on the safety implications of a team member entering a restricted area after the formation lap had commenced. The stewards' report painted a picture of someone who either couldn't or wouldn't respond to official instructions. They determined that anyone affiliated with a Formula One team should understand that entering track areas or hindering safety procedures after the grid has been cleared is absolutely forbidden. The timing was particularly problematic, occurring precisely when marshals were implementing crucial safety protocols. Red Bull team principal Laurent Mekies attempted damage control after the race, describing the entire episode as a misunderstanding. He insisted that his team member believed he had followed all marshal instructions and claimed they received no specific directions to stay away from the area. However, this explanation feels somewhat hollow when you consider the broader context of what allegedly transpired. The psychological warfare aspect of this story cannot be understated. In Formula One, every tiny detail matters. The difference between pole position and second place can be measured in thousandths of a second. If a simple piece of tape helps a driver position their car with millimeter precision, then interfering with that tape represents an attempt to disrupt a competitor's mental preparation and potentially affect their race performance. McLaren's use of pit wall tape as a visual reference point is completely legal under current regulations. The practice falls outside the scope of race start procedures and grid box usage rules, making it a legitimate tool for driver preparation. Ironically, this also means that interfering with such tape isn't technically illegal either, creating a gray area that teams can exploit. The timing of this controversy adds another layer of significance. Max Verstappen's victory at the United States Grand Prix reduced his championship deficit to just 40 points behind leader Oscar Piastri, with only 5 races remaining in the season. Every point matters at this stage of the championship fight, and any perceived attempt to gain an unfair advantage becomes magnified under the intense scrutiny of title contention. This incident highlights the incredible pressure cooker environment that exists in modern Formula One. Teams invest hundreds of millions of dollars in pursuit of marginal gains, employing armies of engineers, aerodynamicists, and strategists to find every possible advantage. When the competition is this fierce, even something as mundane as a piece of tape becomes a potential battleground. The suspended portion of Red Bull's fine serves as a warning shot from the FIA. Race officials are clearly signaling that they won't tolerate behavior that compromises safety protocols, regardless of the underlying motivations. The message is clear: respect the marshals, follow the procedures, and keep your competitive instincts within acceptable boundaries. Moving forward, this controversy raises important questions about where teams should draw ethical lines in their pursuit of competitive advantage. While Formula One has always been a sport where teams push boundaries and exploit loopholes, there's something unsettling about targeting a rival's simple visual aid. It suggests a level of paranoia and desperation that doesn't reflect well on the sport's premier championship contenders. The Formula One community will undoubtedly be watching closely to see if similar incidents occur in the remaining races of this thrilling championship battle. Hold on, Ferrari fans, because what I'm about to tell you might completely change how you view Lewis Hamilton's debut season with the prancing horse. While everyone's been focused on his struggles to find pace and chemistry with the team, there's something happening behind the scenes that reveals just how complex Formula One really is in the modern era. Picture this: you're Lewis Hamilton, 7-time world champion, arguably one of the greatest drivers of all time, and you've just made the biggest career move in decades by joining Ferrari. The pressure is already immense, the spotlight is blinding, and then your team tells you that you won't even be driving in practice sessions. That's exactly what's happening this weekend in Mexico, and it's not because Hamilton did anything wrong. Ferrari just announced that Antonio Fuoco will replace Hamilton during the first practice session at the Mexican Grand Prix, marking a fascinating twist in what's already been a challenging season for the British driver. But here's where it gets really interesting. This isn't about performance, politics, or punishment. It's about rules that most fans don't even know exist. Formula One has a mandatory requirement that sounds almost absurd when you think about it. Every team must field what they call a rookie driver, someone who started no more than 2 Grand Prix races, in at least 2 practice sessions per car each season. So even if you're Lewis Hamilton with over 300 race starts, you still have to step aside twice a year for someone with virtually no Formula One experience. Antonio Fuoco isn't exactly a household name, but his story is captivating. The 29-year-old Italian was actually part of Ferrari's junior program years ago, testing for them over a decade ago before being released at the end of 2018. Most drivers would disappear after that kind of setback, but Fuoco stayed connected to Ferrari as a simulator and development driver. He's been grinding away in sports car racing, even winning the prestigious Le Mans 24 Hours race just this year. When Fuoco posted on social media saying he got the call for Mexico, you could feel his excitement through the screen. This represents his first official Formula One race weekend appearance in more than 10 years. Imagine the emotions running through someone who thought their Formula One dreams were over, suddenly getting another shot on one of the sport's biggest stages. The timing of this announcement reveals something fascinating about Ferrari's strategy. Charles Leclerc has already sat out his mandatory rookie sessions this season, being replaced by Dino Beganovic at both Bahrain and Austria. That young Swedish-Bosnian driver finished 14th in Bahrain, running about 1.2 seconds slower than Hamilton. Not terrible for someone stepping into a Formula One car for the first time, but it shows the massive gap between rookie drivers and established stars. This creates an intriguing puzzle for Ferrari's remaining races. With Hamilton needing to miss one more practice session this season, where will they choose to sacrifice his track time? Brazil and Qatar are sprint weekends, with limited practice, making them unsuitable for rookie outings. Las Vegas runs on a challenging street circuit, where inexperience could be dangerous. That leaves Abu Dhabi as the most likely candidate for Hamilton's final, mandatory absence. Think about the psychological impact on Hamilton. He's already struggling to find his rhythm with Ferrari, still searching for his first podium finish with the team. Every minute of practice time is precious when you're trying to adapt to a new car, new team dynamics, and new working methods. Having to give up valuable track time for regulatory compliance must be incredibly frustrating. But there's a bigger story here about how Formula One balances its commercial interests with driver development. These rookie requirements exist to give young drivers opportunities they might never otherwise receive. For someone like Fuoco, This Mexican Grand Prix practice session could be career-defining. Teams get to evaluate talent in real racing conditions, potentially discovering the next generation of stars. The irony is striking. Hamilton joined Ferrari partly to chase that elusive 8th World Championship, but the sport's own rules are forcing him to watch from the sidelines during crucial preparation time. Meanwhile, Fuoco gets to fulfill a dream that seemed impossible just months ago. Ferrari's decision to choose the Mexican Grand Prix for this switch is strategically interesting. Mexico City's high altitude creates unique challenges with reduced downforce and different engine performance characteristics. It's not the easiest track for a rookie debut, but it's not the most punishing either. The Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez has good runoff areas and relatively forgiving corners compared to street circuits or classic European tracks. As we head into this weekend's action, remember that Formula One isn't just about the 20 regular drivers we see every race weekend. It's about the dozens of talented individuals working behind the scenes, dreaming of their chance in the spotlight. Antonio Fuoco represents all those drivers who refuse to give up on their Formula One aspirations, even when the path seems impossible. For Hamilton, this forced break might actually provide valuable perspective. Sometimes stepping back allows you to see the bigger picture more clearly. When he returns for qualifying and the race, he'll be watching the data from Fuoco's session, potentially learning something new about the car's behavior. This weekend in Mexico, we're witnessing more than just another practice session replacement. We're seeing dreams fulfilled, careers potentially launched, and the complex machinery of modern Formula One in action. Don't miss it. What happens when a young Formula One driver defies his own team in front of millions watching? Well, Franco Colapinto just found out the hard way, and his Formula One future might depend on how Alpine responds to his bold move at the United States Grand Prix. Picture this. You're watching the final laps of the US Grand Prix, and suddenly, you see two Alpine teammates going wheel to wheel, almost crashing into each other. That's exactly what happened when 22-year-old Franco Colapinto completely ignored team orders and overtook his own teammate Pierre Gasly in one of the most audacious moves of the weekend. Here's what went down. Both Alpine cars were struggling near the back of the pack, running 17th and 19th with nowhere near the pace needed for points. As they approached the final 3 laps, Colapinto's race engineer Stuart Barlow came on the radio with a clear instruction: hold positions behind Gasly. But Colapinto wasn't having any of it. When told to maintain his position, he actually questioned the order over the radio, saying his teammate was too slow. Then, in a move that had everyone talking, he muscled his way past Gasly on the inside at turn 1, the two cars almost touching wheels as he snatched 17th place. Now, you might think this was just racing instinct kicking in, but there's so much more to this story. Colapinto is fighting for his Formula One career right now. His future with Alpine for the upcoming season isn't confirmed yet, despite reports suggesting it's just a matter of time. Every move he makes on track is essentially a job interview at 200 miles per hour. After the race, Colapinto stood firmly behind his decision. He explained that his car had significantly more pace than Gasly's in that final stint, and with Gabriel Bortolito breathing down their necks from behind, he felt his aggressive move was strategically correct. In his words, it was the best situation to have him in front. Otherwise, both Alpine cars risked being overtaken. The young Argentine also pointed out that the team had allowed them to race freely at other circuits throughout the season, suggesting this shouldn't have been any different. He emphasized that they needed to analyze all the data from every moment of the race to understand the complete picture. But Alpine management saw things very differently. Managing Director Steve Nielsen made it crystal clear that any instruction from the pit wall is final, period. He expressed disappointment that Colapinto didn't follow orders and confirmed that the situation would be reviewed and dealt with internally. Those are not words any driver wants to hear when their contract negotiations are hanging in the balance. However, here's where the story gets really interesting. Alpine's de facto team boss is Flavio Briatore, a legendary figure in Formula One who managed drivers like Michael Schumacher and Fernando Alonso during their championship-winning campaigns in the early 2000s. Briatore has a reputation for appreciating drivers with fierce competitive instincts and a willingness to push boundaries. This creates a fascinating dynamic. While Nielsen represents the corporate management side expressing disappointment, Briatore might actually appreciate Colapinto's do-or-die attitude. After all, this is exactly the kind of mentality that separates good drivers from great ones in Formula One's ultra-competitive environment. The timing couldn't be more crucial for Colapinto. Alpine is reportedly only considering internal candidates for their driver lineup, with Colapinto competing against Jack Doohan and Paul Aron for a coveted seat. In this high-stakes environment, showing speed and racecraft might outweigh following team orders, especially when those orders involve maintaining position in the back of the field. This incident perfectly encapsulates the modern Formula One dilemma. Teams want drivers who can deliver results and show killer instinct, but they also need soldiers who follow strategic commands without question. Colapinto's move demonstrates pure racing DNA, the kind of instinct that can't be taught in simulators or coaching sessions. What makes this situation even more compelling is that both cars were fighting for essentially meaningless positions. Neither 17th nor 19th place would earn championship points or significantly impact Alpine's constructor standing. Yet Colapinto's decision to ignore team orders in this scenario sends a powerful message about his competitive mentality. The internal review Alpine mentioned could go either way. They might view his actions as insubordination that undermines team unity and strategic decision-making. Alternatively, they could see a young driver with the kind of fighting spirit that Formula One demands at its highest level. For Colapinto, this moment represents everything about his Formula One journey so far. He's shown flashes of brilliance since joining the grid, consistently outperforming expectations and demonstrating the raw talent that caught Alpine's attention in the first place. His willingness to risk team displeasure for track position reveals someone who refuses to accept mediocrity. As Alpine weighs their driver decisions for the upcoming season, they face a choice between playing it safe with a compliant driver or embracing the unpredictable energy that Colapinto brings. His Austin overtake might have cost him favor with management, but it also showcased exactly why he deserves consideration for a full-time Formula One seat. The coming weeks will reveal whether Colapinto's gamble paid off or backfired spectacularly. Either way, his refusal to back down when racing instinct called has already cemented this moment as a defining chapter in his young Formula One career. Did you just witness Formula One's greatest comeback artist strike again? Because Max Verstappen just pulled off something absolutely incredible at the United States Grand Prix, and his former teammate Daniel Ricciardo had the perfect reaction that's got everyone talking. Picture this: you're watching one of the most dominant Formula One performances in recent memory, and your former teammate is so far ahead that you joke he's probably already ordering his dinner while crushing the competition. That's exactly what happened when Ricciardo watched Verstappen's masterclass performance in Austin, Texas. The Dutchman didn't just win the race, he obliterated the field. Leading from the very first corner to the checkered flag, Verstappen showed why he's considered one of the greatest talents this sport has ever seen. But here's where it gets interesting. While most fans were focused on the incredible driving display, Ricciardo was having a completely different reaction. In a casual conversation with fans, the Australian driver known as the Honey Badger couldn't contain his admiration. His assessment was brutally honest and hilariously blunt. He acknowledged that stating the obvious about Verstappen's talent had become almost redundant at this point, but he couldn't help himself. The kid was just that good. But Ricciardo didn't stop there. With his trademark humor, he painted a picture that perfectly captured just how comfortable and in control Verstappen looked during the race. While other drivers were battling wheel to wheel, fighting for every tenth of a second, and pushing their cars to the absolute limit, Verstappen appeared so relaxed that Ricciardo joked he was probably already thinking about his post-race meal preferences. This isn't just friendly banter between former teammates. Ricciardo raced alongside Verstappen for 3 crucial seasons from 2016 to 2018, witnessing firsthand the development of what would become one of Formula One's most formidable talents. During those years, he saw the raw speed, the racecraft, and the mental strength that would eventually lead to multiple world championships. The timing of this performance couldn't have been more significant. Coming into the weekend, many experts questioned whether Verstappen could mount a serious championship challenge. The points gap seemed substantial, and his main rivals had been showing consistent speed throughout the season. But in typical Verstappen fashion, He answered those doubts in the most emphatic way possible. The numbers tell an incredible story. By securing maximum points over the weekend, Verstappen managed to close what seemed like an insurmountable championship gap. His rivals, who had looked comfortable just days before, suddenly found themselves looking over their shoulders at the charging Red Bull driver. Even competitors couldn't help but acknowledge what they had witnessed. Team principals from rival organizations found themselves praising Verstappen's performance, with some describing it as watching history unfold in real time. This wasn't just about one race. It was about witnessing a driver operating at a level that separates the good from the truly exceptional. The psychological impact of such dominant performances cannot be understated. When you're leading a championship fight and suddenly your closest rival starts winning with such authority, it creates pressure that extends far beyond just points on a scoreboard. Every mistake becomes magnified, every strategic decision carries more weight, and every race weekend becomes a potential turning point. Ricciardo's perspective offers something unique in this narrative. As someone who stepped away from the sport, he can observe these performances without the pressure and politics that come with active competition. His assessment carries weight because it comes from someone who has experienced the highest levels of Formula One racing and understands exactly what it takes to perform at that level. But this story isn't just about Verstappen's dominance. Ricciardo also took time to recognize another driver who deserves attention. Yuki Tsunoda, currently fighting for his Formula One future, showed impressive racecraft during the same weekend. While he couldn't match Verstappen's pace, Tsunoda demonstrated the kind of consistent point scoring that teams value highly. The Japanese driver's performance becomes even more significant considering the uncertainty surrounding his future in the sport. With team management decisions looming, every race becomes an opportunity to prove his worth. Ricciardo's support for Tsunoda highlights the camaraderie that exists among drivers, even when career pressures could easily create purely competitive relationships. Looking ahead, the championship battle has transformed from what seemed like a foregone conclusion to one of the most compelling narratives in recent Formula One history. With several races remaining, the mathematical possibilities create scenarios that seemed impossible just weeks ago. Ricciardo's excitement about watching this championship fight develop speaks to what makes Formula One truly special. The sport's ability to create these dramatic storylines, where individual brilliance can completely reshape what seemed like predictable outcomes, keeps fans and former competitors equally engaged. As we approach the final races of the season, one thing becomes clear. Never underestimate a driver with nothing to lose and everything to prove. Verstappen's recent form suggests that this championship battle is far from over, and if Ricciardo's assessment is accurate, we might be witnessing something truly extraordinary unfold before our eyes. Did you just witness one of the most controversial racing incidents of the season? Because what happened between Yuki Tsunoda and Oliver Bearman at the Austin Grand Prix has the entire Formula One paddock talking, and trust me, you're going to want to hear every single detail of this explosive confrontation. Picture this. You're flying down the main straight at Circuit of the Americas, wheel to wheel with another driver, when suddenly, they start weaving like they're dodging invisible obstacles. That's exactly what Oliver Bearman experienced, and his reaction afterward was nothing short of nuclear. But here's the twist that makes this story absolutely fascinating. This wasn't just any ordinary racing incident. The drama unfolded at turn 15, where Bearman was attempting to overtake Tsunoda's Red Bull. What should have been a standard racing maneuver turned into a heart-stopping near disaster that had Bearman cutting across grass and spinning off track. But the real fireworks started when Bearman stepped out of his car and absolutely unloaded on the Japanese driver. Here's where things get really interesting. Bearman didn't just complain about one isolated incident. He painted a picture of systematic, dangerous driving that spanned multiple laps. According to the British driver, Tsunoda was moving unpredictably through corners 12 and 13, creating a pattern of erratic behavior that culminated in the near-catastrophic moment at turn 15. The accusations Bearman leveled were serious. He claimed Tsunoda moved under braking, failed to leave adequate racing room, and forced evasive action that could have resulted in a massive crash. But what really caught my attention was Bearman's emphasis on the bigger picture. He wasn't just angry about his own race being compromised. He was genuinely concerned about the message this sends to young drivers watching from home. Think about the psychology here for a moment. Bearman specifically mentioned how this type of comp driving goes against what they should be projecting to kids in karting. That's a powerful statement that goes beyond just racing etiquette. It touches on responsibility and sportsmanship at the highest level of motorsport. Now, here's where the story takes a fascinating turn into the realm of championship politics and career pressure. This incident happened just before Red Bull was set to announce their driver lineup for the following season. Bearman suggested that Tsunoda's aggressive tactics might have been driven by desperation, a driver fighting tooth and nail for his Formula One future. The timing couldn't be more significant. When you're potentially racing for your career, how far is too far? Bearman observed that Tsunoda had multiple controversial moments throughout the weekend, including incidents with teammate Liam Lawson in both sprint qualifying and the main qualifying session, followed by contact with Lawson during the sprint race itself. But wait, there's more to this story. Bearman noticed something peculiar about Tsunoda's defensive driving. The Japanese driver was even battling against Charles Leclerc, who wasn't even competing for the same championship positions. This raised questions about whether Tsunoda was simply fighting everyone, regardless of strategic logic. The regulatory aspect adds another layer of complexity. Bearman acknowledged that some of Tsunoda's moves might exist in a gray area of the rules, but emphasized that moving under braking, regardless of technical legality, creates dangerous situations that have historically led to serious accidents in motorsport. From Tsunoda's perspective, however, the situation looked completely different. When confronted with these accusations, he maintained his innocence with surprising confidence. He insisted he never moved under braking and characterized the entire incident as unfortunate racing circumstances rather than deliberate dangerous driving. Tsunoda's defense was straightforward. He felt completely in control throughout the battle, experienced no lockups, and viewed their wheel-to-wheel racing as exactly that, racing. His response revealed an interesting mindset where he saw nothing wrong with hard defending, especially when fighting for valuable championship points. The broader implications of this controversy extend beyond just two drivers having a disagreement. This incident highlights ongoing debates about racing standards, enforcement consistency, and the pressure cooker environment that drivers face when their careers hang in the balance. What makes this story particularly compelling is how it showcases the fine line between aggressive racing and dangerous driving. In Formula One, where milliseconds and positions can determine entire careers, drivers constantly navigate this boundary. Sometimes they get it right, and sometimes they create situations that spark exactly this kind of heated debate. The aftermath saw both drivers finishing in the points, with Tsunoda claiming 7th place and Bearman securing 9th. But the real impact of this incident will likely resonate far beyond a single race result. It raises important questions about how drivers should compete when everything is on the line. Looking at the bigger picture, this controversy perfectly encapsulates the intensity and complexity of modern Formula One racing. It's not just about speed and skill anymore. It's about psychology, pressure, career survival, and the constant balancing act between pushing limits and maintaining safety standards that protect everyone on track.